Yo, what's going on, grinders? How you doing out there? This is what grinds my gears. Yes, as you can see from the title, there's been some things coming about with Black Myth Wukong, which, as many may know, was available last year on PlayStation 5 and also on PC. And there was this whole sort of discussion as to whether it was a timed exclusive, whether it was money-hatted, they say, and was it technical issues because of our good friend Booster, the Series S, trying to get it to run on there, which the developer sort of alluded to as some technical challenges, but those were later trying to be put on the side as for something that may have been Sony money-hatted, because it appears that this was a 1 year, coming out 1 year to the day of when it was available on PlayStation 5, making people think that it was a Sony exclusive, but Sony paid for the exclusivity. From what we heard and what was rumored, the Sony had sent out their ninjas to go help them make sure that it was optimized for the PlayStation, hence why they developed it for the PlayStation, and the Xbox ninjas were nowhere to be found. What are you talking about? This is the Xbox ninjas. We were trying to get Wukong to work on the Series S. Yes, Xbox ninjas. Yes, those are them. Two dudes, one tooth. They obviously couldn't put in the work to get this thing optimized for the Series S in time. Wukong went on to win awards, be Game of the Year nominations, and nobody could play it on an Xbox.
Where that box is in the name of our brand.
So now what we come to is finally it was announced that is coming to Xbox, and with all the glory, celebration, pomp, and circumstance, you think the whining and complaining that the Xbox fans will finally be excited to receive such a great game. It is a really good game. Like, it is very entertaining and challenging as well. And finally, it's coming to their platform. And a head-scratching moment, Grind, is I see a sort of a organized boycott for this game, as they don't trust the devs and sold out, and they took the Sony money. I'm flabbergasted. It is actually insane, and this grinds my gears because it is just so, like, I just don't understand the logic here, because the amount of effort and complaint to get this game, or why is it not here on Xbox? Of course, they don't challenge Microsoft and Phil Spencer. What's going on here? Why aren't you making deals like this? Or if it is a deal, or why is this always seem to be a problem? We're seeing it again. Inoya, whatever that Sims game is, we're considering Xbox. This platform has become an option for developers. Sort of like we'll do it later on. It's not a priority anymore. But that is not due to the devs. Should not be blamed for that. That is the awkward situation that Microsoft and Xbox created by putting a very weak console out there with a Series S. And I heard some of the boycotts. Well, if they get it to run on a Steam Deck, why can't they do it on a Series S? Let me give you a little insight here. The Steam Deck is not specifically developed for. It is a PC. So when you look, if you have one of these handheld PCs, and get ready, Xbox guys and everybody with the Asus ROG Ally X, former son's former roommate, cousin, neighbor's friend, enough names on that thing. Let me tell you something. Let me talk to you. Yeah. Let me talk to you. Let me tell you something. There are whole Discords, forums, and videos to show you how a game could run. Wukong is not Steam Deck certified, but it can run on a Steam Deck if you follow these tutorials to lower all the assets, to sideload drivers because of graphics. There's factors that are in there. People get it to run. It's not specifically developed for a Steam Deck. When you have a console, a fixed piece of hardware with limited RAM, and what a closed environment. You can't be pulling from, hopefully somebody has a better RAM or a stronger graphics card that could offset the challenges. You got what you got. And you got to pass certifications. So to develop for a closed system does possibly take more time and a certain level of, they can't ship a game at like 15 frames, 20 frames. We just got it to run like somebody maybe, got it to run on a netbook. When you are putting it in a console environment in a storefront, there's console certification. Hence why some of these games come later to console, because of the certifications. So nobody's developing it for a Steam Deck. So that logic, first off, why would you boycott a great game? If you don't like it, don't like it. But this organized kind of like, we're not buying it because they sold out. I didn't see that energy with some other games we'll talk about. But just look here, Grinders, as we go through this. Hit that like button too, by the way, and subscribe to the Gaming Grindhouse, because we're about to start do some cooking. So get your pots and pans out. This is Grinds Our Gears. So there you go. Black Myth Wukong coming to Series X and S in 2 weeks. Will you be playing? We got the dev lied. No. They said F Xbox players, and I say F to them. We'll be spending on other games this month. Nope, I don't support liars. Nope, they didn't care about us, so we don't care about them. Who cares at this point? Maybe if they launched when it came out now, why sell it at all? And then somebody comes in here and says, all these Xbox fans saying no in the comments because it took a year to get over the development hurdle that is a potato Series S. Don't be mad at Game Science, be mad at Xbox for forcing devs to make their games to feature parity on a much weaker system. But it gets worse than this, Grinders. We have... Let me fix this. We have our good friend over here did a whole video about it.
The crutch.
Boom, boom, kabooms.
Everyone, of course, is blaming the Series S as being the little brother of the crutch, and that's not in fact the case at all. They made a deal, they took the bag, and now we're not getting it until whenever. And now, thanks to this delay, whenever it's going to come out, I'm not going to support it. I'm not giving them their money. And I think what's going to end up happening is it's probably not going to sell well on Xbox because you probably pissed off a lot of people. Again, I understand business, but at least be forthcoming with it. Say, yeah, PlayStation, we inked a deal with them. We're a small team. We need the money. So, they're getting the game first. They have a year exclusive, whatever. And maybe Sony's not letting them talk, but the consistent, changing of stories is why I kind of wanted to bring it up. And again, it was a really big story over the weekend. And obviously, here we are. We were off yesterday because of the new year. I wanted to get into it and see. I'm glad that you are with me in the same camp, that you have decided that you're not going to buy the game. I'm not. If they're not going to support me as a customer or a fan, well, then I'm not going to support them. And that's how it should be. Vote with your wallets, ladies and gentlemen. But
I mean, when we have the PC, so it's not like I couldn't have bought it and played it on PC, the best way that they have it.
Indeed.
It's just like I can't support a studio like that who's going to come out here and be full of shit.
Well, I don't. The question I have is, where was all this money hatting and who bought exclusivity and who did all this stuff when we come to Stalker 2? Stalker 2 was on at Game Pass, Xbox, PC, wasn't on PlayStation. But nobody, I didn't see whining and complaining about that. The money hat, why was it first on Xbox? It's business, right? Whatever it was, development, they made a deal. They did what they had to do. And it's business. But Stalker 2 coming out for Xbox, getting delayed, never announced for PlayStation until after the fact. And now look at this. Now that it comes to PlayStation, look at the fine dining that it gets, the treatment now. A master difficulty, UI updates, new missions, engine upgrade, new world events, stability and performance, weather types, gameplay balance tweaks, loot rework, and immersive display mode. Whoa. Well, who could complain about that? But this whole money hatting and the devs lying and all this stuff. First off, if Wukong was a paid for exclusive, why wouldn't PlayStation and Sony talk about it as that? You know, when they bought those games from Bethesda with Deathloop and with Ghostwire Tokyo, those were marketed as Sony exclusives. 1 year. Final Fantasy. Up until this time, they had a thing. I didn't see that for Wukong. It was initially announced for all platforms, but then Xbox dropped off. But then PlayStation just wound up sending in the ninjas, I guess, and get it to work. But the thing is that we constantly see this across the board where Xbox platform is a consideration. It's something that they're going to, will think about it. It's not a priority when it comes to dev time and cost of putting it on there, especially when we see what the possible sales of the hardware are. And there is that caveat of the Series S where Microsoft won't let them not make it for just the Xbox X. That may be a little bit more easier port. They got to kind of go in there and get this thing to work on limited shared RAM on an S 5 years into the generation. And Phil Spencer will not allow the power. It has to be there. Even though we are seeing more and more games dropping performance modes on the Series S and not having 120 frames, not having a performance mode, not having certain things that the X has. And if that doesn't tell you that that thing is not ready for prime time and it is a challenge, we heard it when it was announced at Project Lockhart. And what's crazy is that you going at Wukong, devs, game science, whatever it is, if it is a money hat, business is business. Well, this was as well, but nobody was shouting from the rooftops, this is a bad deal. How dare Stalker not put their game everywhere? How dare they? No, this was a great get. This was a great get. They loved it. Thank you for getting us an exclusive. Like, I understand the bias there, but like to try to damage a great game and try to organize some boycott and just because they lied or they weren't clear as to what the deal was of why it didn't come to Xbox. What was the deal to Stalker 2? Are we going in depth with them and roasting them and asking them why is it on Xbox and not on Play? Why did it come later? Why is it coming out later? Do we roast these devs every single time a game comes out? But it just happens to be that this Xbox Series X seems to be, the Series S seems to be the limiting factor. Just a year before that, another Game of the Year contender in Baldur's Gate 3 was another one. And they came out and said there was technical challenges, things like that. They said that, and everybody said, well, then, work it out, figure it out. Phil, send people over there. And we heard from indie developers where Xbox is not responding to us. We can't get our game on the platform. They had to publicly put it out there. Then Phil sent over some ninja, that's us, to go help them. If Xbox don't care about bringing the content to their platform and are not sending out the proper ninjas, people with a full mouth of teeth, to go help and get this game to work on their console scheme, then that's on them, not on the dev. So, like, if you don't like the game, don't like the game. But to say that you won't do it because nobody's clear on why is this not coming to Xbox, dude, it's not coming to Xbox. And if you need to look at the sales of the console, which they don't share, but the install base, you go gaming everywhere. Yeah. Not there, not on Xbox though. Like, the problem is been the Xbox brand. That's the problem. The problem is that they created this dichotomy of X's and Series S, and they are not willing to put in the work that these devs need to help to get this thing to run best. And then when you see the games come out on Xbox, they're missing trees, they're missing leaves, Phil Spencer hiding in the bushes, he gets rid of the grass. You're like, well, wait a second, why is this game run like ass? Then, for years of exclusivity, talking about Final Fantasy, I've seen so many articles of you messed out every time Square Enix will get on the boards and talk about how we didn't meet our expectations. They're like, that's because you didn't put it on Xbox, Square Enix. You're missing out on us. Even though we're boycotting a game that's coming out because we don't know what the deal was. You missing out on a whole bunch of people over here at Xbox and these influencers going out there. You would be better if you put your game on Xbox. Put your games everywhere and you'll succeed. So they go, okay, well, here's Final Fantasy 16. Look. Did they meet their expectations? It released on Xbox. Put your game everywhere. Final Fantasy 16, there it is. What happened? You couldn't save it or meet their expectations? Sega. I saw something funny as hell, dude. Sega put their... Somebody said Sega put their games in the Game Pass gulag.
Where the box.
Dude, the Game Pass gulag, I heard. I was like, oh, man. Yo, putting your games everywhere doesn't equal, like, you're acting like you have a whole bunch of people ready to buy games, and Final Fantasy 16 comes there, and it's like, did it save the game? No. And I think Square's expectations are Looney Tunes. I don't think they're ever going to meet their expectations. But everybody used that as ammunition to try to make it like you went to Sony for an exclusive and you should have came to Xbox. That's where the real money is, and we would have saved you, and now you would have met your expectations. Well, there it is on Xbox. Did it help them? Did it make them grow? Did all that extra work? Did it? All I saw was it's not in Game Pass. I'm not buying it. I saw a lot of that. And on top of that, I saw that it maybe wasn't even the PlayStation version. It was the PC version that they ported over. I have no clue. But people made such a case about it to get the exclusivity away from PlayStation. Like, if that's their business, to bring exclusives or buy exclusives, Microsoft money hatted. You want to talk about money hatting Wukong, if that is a real thing? Microsoft publicly spent $80 billion on a Supreme money hat. Dude, it was a money cauldron. Money hat. It was a money hat warehouse. They spent $80 billion to buy a whole publisher. 2 of them. They publicly went to court and begged to spend $80 billion to get games to their platform. And what did they do? They said, here's Redfall and here's Starfield exclusive. Well, boycotts? Oh no, it was business. They spent it, let them do what they want. But it wasn't enough, because after that deal, they realized where we putting it, it's not mattering. We got to do more. So the thing is I recommend Wukong. Xbox, you should get it. Don't listen to influencers or this boycott. Get the games that you want to play. And I'm not here to say support the dev. No, as a gamer, you could get what you want to play. But don't be influenced by people organizing some boycott that they do not want to buy the game because the devs weren't honest of what the deal was. There were challenges, obviously. You see it across the board that multiple developers are talking about the challenges with the technology in the Series S, causing delays in optimizations and certification and things like that. it's really up to Microsoft to send in the proper ninjas, a full mouth of teeth, to fix this and to get those games on the platform if they care. They do a lot of talking. They do a lot of shows. Phil Ness says, give me an interview. Sarah Bond says, here I am. They do a lot of talking. But are they talking to the right people, or they're just PR heads? Because if they cared so much, they will be working their overtime to make sure that these games come to you, the gamer. And if there is money hatting going on, if there is exclusivity going on, well, Microsoft has $80 billion. How many exclusives and timed exclusives and optimized games and all that stuff they could have bought for you? But instead, they spent $80 billion, tried the exclusivity, didn't work, and now they put their games everywhere. Even the ones that we grew up playing on Xbox with Halos and Gears and all that other stuff and Forzas. Completely, boom, everything. So they don't believe in exclusivity. But if some other companies do, and they use that to make their platform optimize and work and be the place to play it and address that market, and having that install base makes it a lot easier, like Phil said, Sony makes it hard for us to do what we want to do. The other ones do, Nintendo and Sony. That's not on them. That's on us, he said, because they do not have the install base to make those kind of negotiations. And hey, that's on them. Bad marketing, false promises, the console not optimized, their own games not being optimized, coming out later. We got Hellblade 2 coming out now with 60 frames. When they just let their console sit there for over a year without 60 frames on Hellblade 2. But now when it comes to PlayStation, magically enhanced edition, they're getting 60 frames. That prioritization needed to lie on your hardware. And if some other companies believe in that, and that's what they do to leverage their hardware in this very busy world of gaming, that's what they do. What you should be asking when Phil does his things is, why didn't you do that? If you want Xbox to be a platform for creators, then give them the tools to do it. Because everybody seems to be just either skipping you or considering you later on. And I tweeted out, I was like, you know, when it comes to games being announced for Xbox, it seems to be like when you asked your parents for ice cream and they said, we'll see. And you know that meant no. That's what it seems. But I encourage everybody to go get Wukong if you like the game. Don't fall into this whole boycotting because the deal was not clear and screw to death. Please. It's a great game, and I recommend it. But anyway, grinders, that's your gaming grindhouse. What grinds my gears? Hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll talk to everyone later. I'm out.